Romance of Sui and Tang Dynasties Chapter 88.
Let's say you're a high-ranking government official.
Okay, got it.
You've got a rival, someone you absolutely cannot stand. You are convinced they're a ticking time bomb.
Right.
But right now, they haven't actually done anything wrong. They're just loud. So here's the question. Can you be so afraid of a rebellion that you actually engineer one yourself just to prove you were right?
That is a terrifying question. And it's the ultimate self-fulfilling prophecy, isn't it? You push someone into a corner until their only option is to fight back.
And then you get to say, see, I told you they were violent.
Exactly.
And that right there is the central tension of we're jumping into today. We're looking at a huge moment in Chinese history, specifically the precise triggers of the Lushan rebellion.
And for anyone who hasn't read it, you should really think of this book as like the Game of Thrones or the Crown of the Tang Dynasty.
That's a great way to put it.
It takes the real history, the dates, the names, the battles, and it fills in all the emotional cracks. It shows you the conversations, the paranoia, all the private schemes that the official histories just miss.
And what's so fascinating about Chapter 88 is that it doesn't even focus on the war itself. The armies haven't marched yet. This is all about the breakdown before the breakdown.
It really is a masterclass in communication failure, political sabotage, and just raw paranoia.
Let's introduce the key players on the board.
Okay, so first you have Emperor Xuanzang. He's the big boss, the absolute ruler. But he's getting older, he's suspicious, and frankly, he's pretty emotional.
Then there's Lushan, the powerful general out on the border who's been, acting a little too big for his britches.
And caught right in the middle, you have the famous Yang Guifei, the emperor's favorite consort. She's trying to keep the peace.
But then you have her cousin, the prime minister, Yang Guisong.
And he's the accelerant. He's the key. Yang Guizong is Lushan's bitter political rival. They hate each other's guts.
The chapter actually opens with a poem that sets this whole theme up perfectly. It warns that wolf cubs, ambitious men like Lushan, are hard to raise.
Right.
But then it pivots. It explicitly criticizes the treacherous ministers who boast about their own foresight. It basically says they provoke strong men into rebellion just to prove themselves right.
And that is the thesis of the entire chapter. It's asking, is the wolf biting you because it's a wolf, or did you keep poking it with a sharp stick?
So let's get into the inciting incident. It all starts with a report from a eunuch, a guy named Feng Shenwei.
Right. He comes back from the border, and he's basically trembling. He says, I went to deliver the imperial edict, and Lushan wouldn't even receive it properly. He was rude, arrogant. I felt like I was in a tiger's den.
Now, you'd think an emperor might just, fire a general for that. But for Xuanzang, this is personal.
Oh, deeply personal. You have to understand, he didn't just see Lushan as some employee. He saw him almost like an adopted son. He'd showered this guy with favors. So when he hears this, he doesn't just feel threatened. He feels betrayed.
He's furious. He starts ranting in the palace, calling Lushan ungrateful, totally losing his cool.
He's ready to sign the arrest warrant right there and then.
And this is where young Guifei steps in. She's the only one who can talk him down. And I love how the source shows her here. She's not just some decoration. She is actively managing a crisis.
She really is. She knows if the emperor acts on impulse, it's civil war. So she launches this really structured three-point defense of Lushan.
Okay, let's break those down because they're very clever. First, she plays the cultural difference card.
Right, and Lushan is a barbarian in the court's eyes. He's of Sogdian and Turkic descent. So she argues, he just doesn't know our court etiquette. He's not being treasonous, Your Majesty. He's just uncultured.
Which is a brilliant excuse. It turns treason into just bad manners.
Exactly, it just lowers the temperature in the room. Then for her second point, she sort of gently blames the emperor himself.
Wow, that takes some nerve.
It does. She says, look, you spoiled him. You treated him like family. You let him get away with everything. Of course he's arrogant. She reframes it from, he hates you, to, he's a spoiled brat that we created.
And then the final argument, the big one, the ultimate collateral.
This is the one that really gets through to the emperor. And Lushan's eldest son, An Kingsong, is living right there in the capital.
A hostage, basically.
A very well-treated hostage. He's married to a royal, the Rangi Junzu. So Yang Guifei just asks a simple question. Would any man really launch a rebellion while his own son is living in the target city? It's an immediate death sentence for his child.
And that works. The emperor calms down. He realizes, okay, yeah, he probably wouldn't sacrifice his own son. So instead of sending an army,
he decides to run a test. a loyalty test.
And the test is actually kind of subtle. He orders the son and Kingzong to write a letter to his father.
And the letter invites Lushan to come to the capital to visit a new hot spring at Walking Palace.
A spa day. That's the high-stakes test.
It sounds a little ridiculous to us, but the context is everything. The letter specifically mentions a washing the baby ritual.
Okay, you have to explain that. I remember reading about this. It is one of the weirdest stories in all of Tang history.
It's completely bizarre. Years before, Lushan, this, huge obese general in his 40s, was playfully adopted by Yang Guifei. As a joke, she had him wrapped up in giant diapers and washed him in a tub like a baby while the whole court watched and laughed.
History is so strange.
Yeah, it really is. But the point is, by bringing up that specific memory, the emperor is signaling nostalgia. He's saying, remember the good times when we were family. Come back. Let's hang out at the hot springs.
So the logic is clear. If Lushan shows up for the spa trip, he's loyal.
And if he refuses, he's a traitor. A simple test.
But this is where the story pivots. We turn to the villain of the piece, Prime Minister Yang Gusong. Now you'd think, as Prime Minister, he'd be relieved. Great, we're de-escalating, avoiding a civil war. But the text says he's terrified. Why?
Because he's thinking 2 steps ahead. Think about it. What if Lushan actually comes to the capital, has a nice bath, and clears his name?
He's back in the emperor's good graces.
Exactly. He regains his influence. And if Lushan is back in power, Yang Gusong's job as prime minister is in serious danger. They are mortal enemies.
So for him, peace is actually the worst-case scenario.
It's a disaster for his career. He needs Lushan to fail this test. He needs the rebellion to happen now so he can finally crush his rival while he still has the emperor's complete trust.
He's putting his career above the entire empire.
100%. So he decides to rig the game.
How does he do that?
He realizes that the only way Lushan refuses the invitation is if he feels unsafe. So Yang Gusong has to make him feel utterly terrified. He has to convince him the whole thing's a trap.
And the source details this really nasty 2-pronged attack he uses. First up is a judicial murder.
Yeah, there's a guy named Li Chao. He's an associate of Lushan's, just staying in the capital. Yang Gusong decides to make an example of him.
What does he do?
He bribes the officials at the censorate. Think of it as like the Supreme Court and the CIA rolled into one. He gets Li Chao thrown in prison on fake charges and has him secretly executed. No trial, nothing.
Yeah.
Just gone.
The message to Lushan couldn't be clearer. I can touch your people. You are not safe here.
Exactly. Being your friend is now a death sentence.
And then comes part 2, the disinformation campaign. This feels so modern.
It really does. He sends his own secret agents out to Fanyang on Lushan's home base to spread rumors.
And the rumors are very specific. They're not just general gossip.
No, they're surgical. The agents spread the word that the emperor is furious, that he's discovered all of Lushan's secrets, and this is the crucial part, that Lushan's son has already been thrown in prison.
So he's completely gaslighting him.
Totally. The rumor is that the letter isn't a friendly invitation, it's a lure. Come to the capital so we can execute you and your son together.
So now you've got this split-screen reality. In the capital, the emperor thinks he sent a nice invitation. In Fanyang, Lushan thinks the executioner is sharpening his axe.
Which brings us to the communication breakdown. The son's letter arrives, and Lushan opens it. He reads this invitation to the hot springs. But his mind is just poisoned by all these rumors planted by the prime minister.
The scene in the book is so tense, he doesn't just read the letter, he interrogates the messenger.
Yes, he's trying to find the truth between the lines. He asks 2 critical questions. First, is my son okay?
And the messenger, this poor guy.
He's just a delivery boy caught in the middle of high treason. He tries to be honest, but he makes it so much worse. He says, well, your son was fine when I left, but... And then he mentions that Li Chao was executed and that there are all these crazy rumors flying around about the son being in trouble.
So he accidentally confirms Lushan's worst fears. He validates the prime minister's lies.
He does. But then Lushan asks the second question. And this, to me, this is the tragedy of the whole chapter. This is the hinge on which the Tang dynasty turns. He asks, is there a secret message from Yang Guifei?
Why does he ask that? Why her specifically?
Because she was his protector at court. Despite all the weird adoption stuff, they were political allies. He assumes that if this were really a trap, she would have slipped the messenger a secret note to warn him.
Or if it was safe, she'd send a note saying, don't worry about it, just come.
Exactly. He's looking for the back channel. He's ignoring the official government document and looking for that personal reassurance. In high-stakes politics, you never trust the official letter. You trust the back channel.
But the messenger says there's nothing, no note.
And that silence is just deafening.
Why didn't she write? The text says she wanted to.
She did. She desperately wanted to send a signal. But this is where the Prime Minister's other plan comes into play. Yang Guosong had locked down all the postal routes. He set up checkpoints everywhere to catch spies.
Wow.
So Yang Guifei knew that if she was caught sending a secret letter to a general who was under suspicion, she could be implicated in a conspiracy herself.
So even the emperor's favorite was paralyzed by the surveillance state her own cousin had built.
Precisely. Fear in the capital creates silence. And that silence, in Fanyang, is interpreted as confirmation of death.
And Lushan thinks, if even Yang Guifei, who calls me her son, won't write to me, then it must be hopeless. The trap is real.
That's the tragic misinterpretation. The emperor is waiting for his loyal subject to come take a nice bath, and An Lushan is sitting hundreds of miles away, convinced he's about to be murdered.
So feeling backed into a corner, he calls a council of war.
He summons his core team, Yan Zhuang, Gao Shang, and General Ashina Chengqing, and they sit down to weigh their options.
And what's interesting is that An Lushan doesn't immediately say, let's burn it all down.
No, he actually suggests waiting. He says, look, the emperor is old. Maybe we just wait for him to die of natural causes, which is a pretty pragmatic thought. Why risk a war if the problem might solve itself?
But his advisors, Yan Zhuang and Gao Shang, they shut that down immediately, and their argument is fascinating. They're not afraid of the current emperor. They're afraid of who comes next.
Exactly. They say the risk of waiting is too high. A new emperor might be competent.
They're afraid of competence.
Yes. Think about it. Right now, the court is a mess. The prime minister is corrupt. The emperor is distracted by wine and women. They argue that this dysfunction is their greatest asset. If they wait, a new, strong emperor might clean house and get rid of all the powerful border generals.
So their argument is essentially, the government is a mess right now. This is our chance.
That's it. Gao Shang points out that the empire's military defenses are hollow. The generals in the interior are disorganized because of all the corruption. He says if we strike now, we win. If we wait, we might face a united front.
And General Ashina Chengqing brings it back to the present. The danger isn't in the future, it's right now.
Right. He reminds them that with Yang Guosong actively framing them, executing their friends, they might not even survive long enough for the emperor to die of old age. It's a use it or lose it moment.
They conclude that the sabotage from the capital has left them with no other choice. To survive, they have to rebel.
And so, the decision is made. The An Lushan rebellion, which will go on to devastate the Tang dynasty and kill millions of people, begins. Not because An Lushan was just ruthlessly ambitious.
But because a rival minister literally scared him into it.
Which brings us right back to that opening poem. The treacherous minister who provokes the rebellion. Yang Guosong got exactly what he wanted. He forced a war to validate his own warnings.
But he burned the whole house down just to kill one spider.
He burned the entire empire down. And the great irony is that Yang Guosong ends up being one of the first major casualties of the war he started. Okay, let's shift scenes. It's November, it's getting cold, you're a high-ranking general on the northern frontier of the Tang dynasty. You get a summons to the headquarters of An Lushan, who is, the most powerful commander in the entire empire.
And the feeling in the air, it isn't just tense, it's suffocating. You walk into this room and there he is, An Lushan, and he's not in his fancy court robes.
No, he's in full battle rattle. We're talking heavy armor, helmet on, hand just resting on the hilt of his sword.
Yeah, that's a look that says something is about to go down. And he doesn't waste any time. He pulls this scroll out of his sleeve and just drops a bomb on the whole room.
He tells them, I have a secret order from the emperor himself. We have to march south now and kill the prime minister.
It is one of the most critical moments in all of Chinese history. But here's the thing, and you just know the men in that room feel it in their gut. The letter is a complete fake.
It's a total forgery, a lie that kicked off a civil war that killed, millions of people. We are looking at the precise moment the golden age of the Tang dynasty just completely comes apart.
And what's so great about this source is that it's not just a dry, these troops moved here. It gets into the psychology of it all. It shows how this rebellion began, not with a battle, but with a room full of terrified men, a massive lie, and I still can't believe this is a key plot point, a pig dragon.
The pig dragon. I saw that in the notes, and Honestly, I thought it was a typo.
Oh, it's not a typo. It might be the single greatest metaphor for political blindness I have ever come across, but we'll get to that. First,
Right.
we have to start with the man.
And Lushan.
And Lushan. It's the 14th year of Tianbao. He's decided, okay, it's time to flip the table. But he has a problem. I mean, even if you're a hugely powerful warlord, you can't just tell 150,000 soldiers, hey guys, let's go commit some high treason today.
Right. The average soldier believes he's loyal to the emperor, not to you personally. So you have to, reframe the entire mission.
You have to. So he uses this classic playbook, a trope in Chinese history called King Jun Se. It means cleaning up the emperor's side. You don't say, I'm against the emperor. You say,
I'm saving the emperor.
exactly. The emperor is a good man being tricked by a corrupt minister, and I am the only loyal patriot who can fix this.
It's brilliant PR, really. It frames treason as the ultimate act of loyalty.
So he gets all his top officers together in Fanyang, and he puts on this show. He reads the fake decree, claims the emperor wants him to execute Yang Guzong.
Who just happens to be the prime minister, and Lushan's #1 political enemy.
So convenient, isn't it? But here's the detail from the text that I love. You'd think the generals would cheer, right? Hooray! Down with the traitor!
If they bought it hook, line, and sinker.
But they don't. The source says they were pale-faced. They just look at each other, stunned. It says they're dumbfounded.
Which tells you everything. They know it's bogus.
They know. These guys are professionals. They know what a real imperial decree looks and sounds like. This whole thing smells wrong. But this is where the power dynamics kick in. They hesitate.
The silence is deafening.
Right. And An Lushan planned for this. He has his inner circle guys like Yan Zhuang and Gao Shang ready to go. The second the room goes quiet, they stand up, swords drawn, and start shouting, "This is a secret order from the emperor. Who dares to disobey?"
So it's not about persuasion. It's pure intimidation.
100%. And Lushan immediately threatens military law. The choice is simple. Join my rebellion, or I kill you right here, right now. And just like that, the hesitation is gone. Fear takes over.
And he has his army. The book says 150,000 troops, but An Lushan, of course, puts out a press release saying it's 200,000.
Always round up. It's basic psychological warfare. You want your enemy to think they've already lost.
So this massive war machine starts rolling south. And this is where the source paints such a grim picture. You have this terrifying, battle-hardened army marching into the Chinese heartland. And the heartland is just soft.
Soft doesn't even begin to cover it. The text says there had been peace for a long time, which sounds wonderful, but in this case, it was a fatal vulnerability. People in the interior, they hadn't seen war in generations. They'd literally forgotten what it looks like.
I remember that line. That local officials gazed at the wind and collapsed.
It's so poetic, isn't it? They weren't just outnumbered, they were psychologically broken before the first soldier arrived. They were throwing open the city gates, running for the hills, or just standing there paralyzed. The whole defensive structure had just rotted away.
They thought peace was the permanent state of things, like, we're the great Tang dynasty. Bad things don't happen here anymore.
And Lushan just shattered that whole illusion. But the really tragic part is, this should not have been a surprise. The emperor, Xuanzang, he'd been warned about this guy for years.
Yeah, this wasn't some bolt from the blue.
Not at all. The text flashes back to a former chancellor, a wise old official named Zhang Juling. Years before, he looked An Lushan right in the eye and told the emperor, this man has a rebellious face.
Okay, let's unpack that. Rebellious face.
Yeah.
Is that literally physiognomy, like reading the shape of his nose and predicting treason?
In the context of the story, yes. It's this idea that your inner nature, your destiny, is written on your physical features. And Zhang Juling basically said, I see traitor written all over this guy. Execute him now and save us all the trouble. And Xuanzang just ignored him.
But there were more concrete warning signs too, right? I mean, beyond just face reading, the man was acting like an emperor long before he rebelled.
Oh, huge red flags. The story about the Qinshang Tower. There's this big festival, the 100 Games, and the emperor invites An Lushan to sit right next to him.
Which, to us today, might not sound like a big deal. You sit next to your boss. So what?
It's all about the direction. In Chinese imperial tradition, only the emperor faces south. It's the position of the ruler. Everyone else faces north, looking up at him. By letting An Lushan sit next to him, also facing south, Xuanzang was visually making him an equal.
And the crown prince was there, seeing all this.
The crown prince is sitting below them. He's the heir, and he has to look up at this warlord sitting in his father's spot. He even complains about it later. He tells the emperor, this isn't right. It breaks all protocol.
A pretty reasonable complaint. Dad, let's maybe not make the general look like a king. What was Yuanzong's excuse?
This is so telling. He basically says, oh, Lushan is just a funny foreigner. He doesn't get our customs. I'm just humoring him.
He sees him as a pet, a novelty.
Exactly. A pet, a jester, anything but a genuine threat. He's so confident, so arrogant, that he sees Lushan's ambition as just a funny little quirk.
Which brings us finally to the pig dragon. Because if the seating arrangement was denial, this story is just, it's pure delusion.
It is the absolute core of the Emperor's failure. The story goes that Lushan got drunk at the palace one day, another huge no-no, and passed out. Some maids peek behind a curtain to check on him, and they see something transform.
A monster.
They say he turned into a creature with the body of a dragon, but the head of a pig.
Okay. Symbolism. Dragon equals emperor. That's the big one.
Right. If you're a general and someone says they saw you turn into a dragon, that's usually treason. You lose your head for that.
But the pig head changes everything.
That's the out. The maids run to Xuanzang and say, we saw a dragon, and that should have set off every alarm bell. But then they add, but with a pig's head. And Xuanzang's reaction is to laugh.
He laughs at a supernatural omen of treason.
He rationalizes it away. He says, a pig dragon cannot create storms or rain. See, in the mythology, a real dragon is a force of nature. A pig dragon is a dud. It's pathetic. So he just tells the maids to toss a curtain over him and not to talk about it.
He literally covered up the problem.
He looked at a sign that screamed, this man is a threat to your throne. And he twisted it through his own bias until it meant, this man is a harmless fool. He wanted to like Lushan, so he chose to see the pig and ignore the dragon.
Wow.
Meanwhile, that harmless fool is marching south with 150,000 men. And while the court is living in this fantasy, real people are already dying. The source gives the story of the first real casualty.
The governor of Taiwan.
Yang Guangzhou. He's related to the prime minister, so he's target number one for Lushan. But the key is, the rebellion is only a few days old. News travels slow.
So Lushan knows it's a war, but the rest of the country doesn't.
And he uses that information gap. He sends a small unit, just 20 cavalrymen. They don't show up with war banners. They claim to be imperial messengers.
And the governor, Yang Guangzhou, he just buys it.
Of course he does. Why wouldn't he? He rides out of the city to greet them, probably to offer them some tea. And the second he's in range, they just grab him.
Wow.
They tie him up, drag him back to Lushan's camp, and he's executed on the spot. It's just so brutal because he died playing by the rules of peace while Lushan was already playing by the rules of war.
That's chilling. So now there's a body. A high-ranking official is dead. This has to be the wake-up call for the emperor, right?
You'd think so. But even then, at first, when the reports come in, Xuanzang calls him slander. He just can't believe it.
He's still protecting his pig dragon.
He is. But then the confirmation of the execution arrives. You can't deny a dead governor. The text says the emperor and his consort, Yang Guifei, were dumbfounded. The bubble finally bursts.
So they call an emergency meeting. The court is in chaos.
And this is where the third leg of the stool of failure comes in. You have the scared generals, the delusional emperor, and now the arrogant prime minister, Yang Guisong.
The very man Lushan is supposedly coming to kill.
The man himself. And a normal person would be terrified. An army is literally coming to get you. But Yang Guisong's reaction, the text says he was triumphant.
Triumphant? That's insane.
Smug. He stands up in front of the panicked court and basically says, see, I told you all he was a traitor. I was right.
He's treating a national security crisis like a personal I told you so moment.
It is the height of narcissism. The emperor asks him, okay, fine, you were right. Now what do we do? And Yang Guisong's military analysis is just, it's pure fantasy.
He downplays it.
He says, Your Majesty, don't worry. And Lushan is the only one who wants to rebel. His soldiers are being forced. They won't fight.
I mean, he's sort of right about the forced part, but that doesn't mean they won't fight.
Exactly. It's a completely flawed assumption. He predicts that the rebellion will collapse in less than 10 days. He thinks all they need to do is send out a messenger to tell the soldiers the truth, and they'll all desert.
10 days. Against 150,000 veterans.
It's madness. He cannot see past his own personal rivalry. He thinks it's about him, not about the throne. And the worst part is, the emperor believes him.
That one line in the text. It says, Xuanzang relaxed.
It's heartbreaking to read, isn't it? He relaxed. He went from a moment of pure panic right back into complacency because his prime minister told him exactly what he wanted to hear.
There's a poem that sums it up perfectly. Something like, big words deceive the ruler, treating the enemy like a plaything.
That's the line, treating the enemy like a plaything. That was the fatal mistake of the entire court. They saw Lushan as a joke, a pet, a pig dragon. By the time they realized he was a real dragon, it was far, far too late.
The scene shifts.
Imagine this for a second. You are a loyal son, you've been writing letters home, you're counting down the days until your father arrives in the capital.
A big reunion.
Exactly. The dinner is planned, you're excited to show him your life. And then the news breaks.
Mm-hmm.
Your father has arrived, but he hasn't come for dinner. He's launched a massive rebellion to overthrow the entire government.
That's the ultimate nightmare scenario.
It really is. And for the young man we're talking about today, that realization wasn't just awkward, it was a death sentence.
Right. And if you think you know the Lushan rebellion, the big battles, the famous beauty, all of that, you need to pause because this source, it just sheds light on this incredibly chaotic window of time right after the rebellion kicks off.
We're talking panic, bad decisions, and honestly, the complete baffling collapse of a superpower.
That's it. We want to understand the systemic rot. We want to get at how a mighty empire like the Tang found itself with, well, literally no army to defend itself.
It's a story of tragic irony, hubris, and a frozen river. That son I mentioned, and King Zong.
Right, and King Zong. He is Lushan's son, and he's living the high life in the capital, Qingyuan. He's technically a hostage, but a very, very fancy one.
Married to a princess, right?
Exactly, to Rangi Junzhu, a royal princess. So when the news hits that his father has rebelled, his whole world just dissolves instantly.
I can't even imagine. Talk about guilt by association.
Well, the source says he's panicked, but he doesn't run. No, he knows the protocol. He binds himself.
Right, literally ties himself up?
Literally. With rope.
Yeah.
And goes to the palace to await his punishment. He's essentially just throwing himself at the emperor's feet, hoping for mercy.
And this is where it gets really interesting because the emperor, Xuanzong, he actually wants to let him off the hook.
He does.
Yeah.
Which is surprising.
Very. You'd think treason 101 is, eliminate the bloodline.
Usually, yeah. But Xuanzong is conflicted. He's old, he's sentimental, and this is his son-in-law. He's looking at this young guy thinking, he isn't his father. Why should I kill him?
He's leaning toward mercy.
Genuinely.
Right.
But then, enter the rival, Yang Gosong.
The prime minister.
And this is a crucial moment. Yang Gosong steps in and just argues forcefully against any mercy. He basically tells the emperor, you cannot be serious.
What's his argument? Just law and order?
On the surface, yes. He says something like, and Lushan has been planning this for years. If you spare his son now, how are you going to satisfy public anger? You'll look weak.
That's a powerful pitch. The classic national security argument.
It is, but the source gives us a little peek behind the curtain.
There's more to it.
There's a huge personal motive here. And Lushan and Yang Gosong hated each other. Bitter rivals. Yang is terrified that if he lets the son live, and somehow this all gets settled, the son is going to come for him later.
So he's using national security to cover his own back.
Precisely. He weaponizes the emperor's fear. He says, and Lushan is already killing people with the surname Yang out of spite. You can't leave this kid alive to be a future threat.
And the emperor buys it?
He does. He's swayed. The order is given, and King Zong is forced to commit suicide.
Wow.
And it's not just him. His wife, the princess, the emperor's own family member, is also forced to take her own life.
That just feels like a massive turning point, a huge strategic blunder disguised as strength.
It's the point of no return. Up until that second, maybe, just maybe, there was a tiny sliver of room for negotiation.
You could have used the son as leverage.
Exactly. But once you execute the rebel leader's son and a royal princess, the bridge is burned. Now, and Lushan isn't just fighting for power.
It's personal.
It's a blood feud.
So the diplomatic option is gone. Now the emperor has to fight. He issues an edict stripping Lushan of his titles, and he looks around for his generals.
And this is where the source drops an absolute bombshell.
There is no army.
There is no army.
Which just seems insane. This is the Tang dynasty, the golden age. How do they not have an army?
And this brings us to, I think, the most fascinating part of the collapse of the fubing system.
Okay, let's unpack this. The fubing system. Because the source makes it sound like it was, well, perfect, at least on paper.
It was brilliant in its design. Originally, the empire was split into 10 prefectures, and within those, you had 634 military offices called Zhejiangfu.
And the soldiers were who?
Farmers. Just regular guys,
Yeah.
aged 20 to 60. In peacetime, they farmed their land. During a war or for training, they became soldiers. And here's the kicker.
What's that?
The state didn't pay for them.
Wait, what? Free soldiers?
Essentially, yeah. The soldiers had to provide their own equipment, armor, weapons, even their own horses. In exchange, they were exempt from taxes and labor duties. So it cost the state almost nothing to maintain this massive reserve force.
I mean, that's a CFO's dream. Low overhead, huge headcount.
It was. And it had these built-in checks and balances. The source mentions the copper fish and wooden deed system.
The copper fish. I love that. How did that work?
Think of it like ancient two-factor authentication. The local commander has one half of a tally, the copper fish, and the central government has the other.
Okay.
You could only move troops if the emperor's edict matched the tally.
So a general couldn't just wake up one day and decide to start a rebellion. He wouldn't have the matching fish.
Exactly. It kept the generals from getting too powerful in peacetime, because the soldiers were just farmers scattered all over the country.
So if this system was so perfect, why was the cupboard bare when Lushan attacked?
Because systems are made of people. And people, people ruin things. The source explains that over decades, the whole thing just rotted from the inside out.
How so?
It started with abuse. The source says officials started treating these soldier farmers like servants. Like slaves!
You're kidding.
No! If you were drafted, you weren't training for battle. You were doing household chores for some bureaucrat, building his deck, washing his clothes.
That's so demoralizing. You sign up to be a hero and end up as a butler.
It gets worse. The border generals were even more corrupt. They would intentionally abuse the soldiers, put them in dangerous situations hoping they'd die,
Why?
so the generals could steal their assets.
Wow. That is dark. So of course nobody wants to sign up.
Right. Everyone deserted or hid or bribed their way off the registry. But the final nail in the coffin, according to our source, came from an official named Li Lingfu.
What did he do?
He petitioned to abolish the verification system, the copper fish tallies.
Why would he do that?
It was a hassle, too much paperwork. So once that happened, the military offices just became empty shells. They had officials collecting salaries, but no actual soldiers on the books.
He was a ghost army?
A ghost army, the source says it bluntly. The officials were just empty titles. So when the emperor calls for troops, he's looking at a spreadsheet that says 100,000 men ready, but in reality, it's just empty barracks.
That is terrifying. It's like finding out your bank account has been empty for 20 years.
And now compare that to what Lushan has.
Right. The contrast is huge.
And Lushan is coming from the border. His troops aren't farmers who've been treated like slaves. They are battle-hardened veterans. They've been fighting the Turks, the Uyghurs.
So you have a ghost army of non-existent farmers versus a professional killing machine.
That's it. And because the government had no troops, they had to scramble. Which brings us to our next character, who really just embodies the overconfidence of the Tang court, Feng Chongqing.
Feng Chongqing. The source introduces him as the Judushi of Anxi, and he makes quite an entrance.
He does. He's described as a man who is ambitious in words.
That's a very polite way of saying he talks a big game.
A very big game. The emperor asks him for a strategy, and Feng Chongqing basically scoffs at the whole rebellion. He tells the emperor, don't worry, people are only scared because they haven't seen war in a long time.
He's just dismissing the threat completely.
He is. He claims he can go to the eastern capital, Luoyang, open the treasury, recruit some brave men, and bring back An Lushan's head in a matter of days.
In a matter of days. Wow.
It's pure hubris. But the emperor is desperate. He's delighted to hear someone with confidence. So he gives Feng the job. Go fix it.
So Feng rushes to Luoyang. He opens the treasury. He puts up the help wanted signs. What happens?
Well, money talks. He gets 60,000 men almost instantly.
60,000. I mean, that sounds like a success. He built an army overnight.
It sounds like one. But then he actually looks at them. And the source is just devastating here. It calls these 60,000 men city rascals and market idlers.
Market rascals, so hooligans.
Basically, untrained street toughs, people looking for a quick paycheck. They're not soldiers. They don't know formations. They don't have discipline. And suddenly, Feng Chongqing realizes the huge mistake he's made.
The reality check must have been brutal.
Panic-inducing. He realizes his troops are totally low quality, so he has to change strategy instantly. Instead of attacking, he orders the destruction of the Haiyang Bridge to try and play defense.
He goes from offense to desperate defense in a heartbeat.
But nature, or maybe fate, had other plans. And this leads to one of the most cinematic moments in the whole text, the frozen river.
Yes. So, An Lushan's army gets to the Yellow River. The bridge is gone. But it is the dead of winter. Freezing cold.
And An Lushan is not a man who gives up. He orders his soldiers to improvise. They take long ropes and they tie all their ships together. But they don't just let them float. They pack the spaces between the ships with straw and wood.
Creating a kind of solid base.
Yes, and because it was so cold, overnight, the ice freezes everything together. The ships, the ropes, the straw, the wood, it all becomes one solid floating ice bridge.
That is terrifyingly ingenious.
It allowed his entire cavalry, thousands of them, to cross the Yellow River as if it were dry land.
Imagine being the defender on the other side. You wake up, and there's an ice highway with an army charging across it.
That defender was a general named Zhang Jiran, and he didn't stand a chance.
The source says the cold was a huge factor for his troops, too.
It was a total disaster. His civilian soldiers, those market rascals, are up on the walls, but the weather is so bitter their hands and feet are frozen stiff they can't even hold their weapons.
So they were broken before the fighting even started.
Completely. The governor of the city, Guo, sees the writing on the wall. He surrenders.
And what happens to General Zhang Jiran?
He's captured and executed right there. But this is where the story loops back to the beginning.
The execution of the son.
Right. And Lushan has just taken the city. He's victorious. And then the news arrives from the capital. His son, Kingzong, is dead, executed by the emperor.
And his reaction is intense.
It is. He cries aloud. He screams, "What crime did I commit?" He claims the emperor is the one who severed their relationship. He casts himself as the victim.
Which is a take, considering he just started a rebellion.
It's the logic of a warlord,
Yeah.
but the consequence is horrific.
Yeah.
In his rage, to vent his anger, as the source puts it, he orders a massacre.
Of the surrendered soldiers.
For everyone. The soldiers, the civilians of Chenliu. It becomes a slaughter.
This is that tragic cycle. The emperor killed the son to show strength, but it just made the rebellion infinitely more brutal.
Violence begets violence. By taking reconciliation off the table, the emperor basically guaranteed that Lushan would fight with a level of cruelty that maybe wasn't there at the very start.
So news of this disaster, the ice bridge, the surrender, the massacre, it all gets back to the capital.
And the denial is finally broken. The emperor realizes his advisors, people like Yang Guzong, were dead wrong. This isn't a small uprising, it's an existential threat.
He calls them out on it, right?
He does. He basically tells them, "You told me this would be easy. You told me he was weak." The source says the treacherous ministers were terrified. They'd run out of lies.
So what does the emperor do?
He makes a drastic decision. He declares that he will personally lead the 6 armies to destroy the ingrate Lushan.
He's going to the front lines himself.
And he leaves the crown prince in charge of the state.
It sounds brave. The old emperor strapping on his armor to save the empire.
It sounds brave, but if you look closer, it smells of pure desperation.
How so?
Well, think about it. He just found out his entire military system is a hollow shell. His generals are incompetent boasters. His prime minister is a schemer. He probably decides to lead the army himself because he realizes he's the only person left he can trust.
He can't outsource the survival of the empire anymore.
Exactly. But that just raises the next question. What happens when a leader who hasn't seen a war in decades tries to command a broken system against a brute like Lushan?
That is a very scary thought.
It is. The source ends this section with a telling line. It says the mediocre officials had no ideas left. The system had completely paralyzed itself.
It's a sobering look at how fast things can fall apart.